Welcome to Spiritual Insurgency. I'm Jason Lupo, joined today by my co-host Aaron Lujan.
Oh.
And our very special guest, Julie Royce.
Hey, good to be with you.
And we're talking about this breaking story down in Colorado Springs involving Pastor Brady Boyd of New Life Church down here in the Springs. Breaking story with Pastor Robert Morris being arrested on counts of sexual abuse of a minor out in Oklahoma, with the knowledge that Brady Boyd and elders of New Life Church were aware of the incident for years. So Julie Royce has been investigating this incident and investigating this story, and she's here to tell us more.
Welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
And I wanted to introduce Julie briefly. Our guest today, of course, is Julie Royce. She's a veteran investigative reporter, former Moody radio host, and the founder of the Royce Report, one of the most influential independent outlets covering abuse and financial scandals in the church. With over 2 decades in Christian journalism, Julie has earned a reputation for fearless reporting, breaking stories on major figures like Ravi Zacharias, Bill Hybels, and now Robert Morris. Her work has been cited by the New York Times, Christianity Today, and the Washington Post. She has been a featured commentator on Fox News and NPR, a graduate from Northwestern University Medill. Is that Medill or Medill? Medill. See, I was a C student, ladies and gentlemen. School of Journalism. Julie has won multiple awards of her investigative work, including the prestigious Wilbur Award for religious reporting. But beyond accolades, her mission is clear: exposing corruption, defending victims, and demanding accountability in spaces where power has gone unchecked. Her recent bombshell investigation in Gateway's Church's leadership has reignited a national debate on abuse cover-ups in evangelicalism. Julie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And I think you gave me an award I don't think I got.
Okay, I apologize.
Where'd you get that from?
Artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the Wilbur Award is. Maybe the Wilberforce
I will
Award? I don't know.
present the Wilbur Award this afternoon.
Okay, then I've got it. But thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're
Appreciate
welcome.
that.
There you go. We're in the early stages of AI, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
And we're just happy to have you. So walk us through where this all started and how you found out about this and what kind of inspired you to make the connection between New Life and Brady Boyd.
Sure. Well, it actually started several months ago. I heard early this year, I can't remember if it was, I think February, that I've been speaking with Cindy Clenishire and Karen Black, who is her sister, and they told me, hey, did you know? Because we were planning on doing a podcast. They kept getting either delayed or canceled, and then once there were criminal charges filed, then they were like, oh, gee, I don't know if we should be doing a podcast right now. But we've been in conversation for months, and they told me, Karen Black told me, we had a long conversation. It wasn't on the record at that point, but she had told me all about how she came in 2007, told the entire search committee at New Life, because she was a New Life member at the time.
Black,
Yeah, Karen Black.
I'm sorry, Karen Black, yeah.
She was a New Life member at the time, and when she heard that the search committee was looking at Brady Boyd, because I think like in August 1st, or right around there, 2007, he was invited to come in and sort of candidate, do 3 services in a row, preach, and then the church was going to vote. When she heard this, she was horrified, because she's like, he's the associate senior pastor at Gateway, has been an elder at Gateway for 6 or 7 years at that point. And she knew that Robert Morris, who's this very prominent pastor at Gateway Church in Texas, that he had sexually molested her sister from the time she was 12 till the time she was 16. And it's just shocking to her that this guy, one, rose to prominence, but and here's the other thing. Both Cindy and Karen said to me, because they said, everybody's asking, oh, Cindy, why did you go public with this now? And they're both like, we've been going public with this for decades. Nobody's listened to us. We've gone to church. And you know what the difference was? This time, in 2024, they didn't go to church leaders. They didn't go to big celebrity pastors. They didn't go to elders. They went to the press. They went to the media and told their story. And then when the public found out, they were shocked. This has been an open secret for years. And now we're learning how many people knew, and there's documents, showing, emails and all these different things. But just absolutely shocking how many people knew. But when it comes to New Life Church, again, came to the search committee in 2007. So this is, and I know because Karen Black gave me an email showing that by August 10th, Lance Coles, who's still an executive pastor there at New Life, sent her an email saying, thanks so much for coming to the committee and telling us your story. So we know by August 10th, they knew. And then they went ahead and hired.
So Karen Black was actually a member at New Life Church at that time?
She was a member.
So she was a member at this church. She goes to the search committee, which I'm assuming involved much of the church leadership in that search committee.
9 members, and one was a youth pastor at the time. He's no longer with the church, and he's since done a big TV production or video
Are we
production.
talking about Ross Parsley?
No, not Ross Parsley. Ross Parsley was on the committee, but he says that he stepped down because he became a candidate for the position.
Right.
Which
Fair enough.
yeah, I think that's valid. But there were 2 executive pastors, Brian Newberg, who's still an executive pastor there, and Lance Coles, who is still an executive pastor there. So both of them knew. And Karen Black, she said, I had a whole presentation. Like, I told them everything, pictures, the whole 9 yards.
How many of the elders were involved in that search committee?
Actual elders,
Do we know?
I am not positive. There was one. Did they have female elders? Because
I'm not sure.
Because I learned through AI that one of the women was supposedly a female elder, but I haven't been able to
My last check at the
document that.
website is there are none.
Yeah, so that one I was like, wait,
I
but
don't
her
think so.
husband had been a trustee there for years and years. And they were lay leaders, a number of them that weren't staff.
So when Brady Boyd assumes the role of head pastor of New Life Church and puts Robert Morris as an overseer of the church, there's enough people that have known at this point from the search committee that somebody should have said something.
Well, and it's not just the search committee, because on that email that I got from Karen Black that came from Lance Coles, he mentions how he's trying to inform all the authorities at New Life, and he mentions overseers. Well, the overseers at that time, Larry Stockstill was one of them. Larry Stockstill is still an overseer at New Life, and he is one that was praised by Brady Boyd when he gave his recent statement. So Larry Stockstill is the one that you'll see, like when everything came out about Ted Haggard. Stockstill is the one who kind of works, he's the spokesperson because he's the most prominent. The other overseers were local pastors and not nearly as prominent. To think that Larry Stockstill didn't know is hard to imagine. And to think that Larry Stockstill, Lance Coles, Brian Newberg, all of these lay leaders knew about it and they didn't say anything to Brady?
So even if Brady Boyd was telling the truth
Yes.
in his message to the congregation on Sunday, June 8th,
Yes.
even if he was telling the truth that he truly didn't know, the idea that nobody at New Life would have known at this point is absolutely absurd.
It's strange. Well, we know for a fact. He even confirmed it that the search committee members knew that she was 12 years old and the abuse lasted 4 years till she was 16.
And he said that in his message.
He said
did.
that, yes.
And
he
so-
confirmed it.
Process, though, of them interviewing me, the search committee was brought, the fact that Cindy Clemenshire was 12 years old, that was brought to their attention. They found out, they heard in an interview with a family member that Cindy was 12 years old. And they immediately called the elders at Gateway Church and told them. And the elders of Gateway Church said, we're aware of that. It's been handled. Her family, her pastor has given Robert a thumbs up. They've gone through a process of restoration, and there's nothing left to do. It's already been reported.
There leads to so many questions about leadership aside from Brady Boyd at New Life Church, and the fact that more than at least nine people knew of these allegations and said absolutely nothing. And then on top of that, after they hired Brady Boyd, these 9 people, and probably more, still said absolutely nothing when they put Robert Morris as an overseer of New Life Church.
But the search committee didn't tell me. And so I made Robert an overseer of the church.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And here's the other thing that Brady said. Remember, he said, I would never, when he was, this was just, a couple weeks ago, I would never, ever dream of putting a pedophile in a position of authority at this church.
I would never, ever put a known pedophile in a place of authority in this church.
And he talked about how shocking and how awful that would be. And so I reached out to him and I said, you praised in the same breath that you said that, you praised the search committee, called them an amazing group of people, and talked about how great they were. Great people, I think were his exact words. An amazing group of people, great people.
When I was interviewed here 18 years ago, there was a amazing group of people. I think 5 men, 4 women, a 9-person search committee that did a worldwide search for the next senior pastor of New Life Church. And they were amazing people, great people. They did due diligence on me. Some of the questions they asked me, I've never been asked before, but you can understand they needed to make sure that if they were going to put another person in a position of leadership at New Life, that person needed to be vetted well. And so they asked me every question they could about every topic. And I answered every question honestly. I introduced them to my friends, my pastoral friends, one of which, of course, was Robert Morris. And they prayed, they heard the Lord, and that's why I became senior pastor at New Life Church.
I said 2 of them have known since 2007 that Robert Morris was a pedophile and serving as an overseer at your church. So you say it would be so shocking for you to do it, but you're okay with them doing it? And his response was, I mean, it's like the PR response, right? I can't talk about any personnel issues. We always have that line. And then they're godly men and they've repented. And you're like, they may have repented. They may otherwise be godly men who made a horrible, horrible error. But there are consequences for that kind of an error.
Still have consequences.
And to be at a 15,000 member church and be top executive pastors, and there's no doubt, there's no plausible deniability for these 2 men. They need to step down, period. And he needs to call for it.
Absolutely. And we're talking about 2007, but my understanding in reading your report is there were emails and communication suggesting that there was knowledge back in 2005 and in 2000. Can you take us back to, because my understanding was that Brady Boyd was an elder going back as far as 2000, and there were emails sent and internal communication that was revealed during the court affidavits. Can you speak to 2000 and 2005?
Alleging Gateway elders didn't know about the relationship or its extent until 2024. Actually, the documents prove they knew by 2005, if not earlier. But Brady Boyd became an elder at Gateway Church 5 years earlier, in 2000. And so, according to the timeline spelled out in the affidavit, he would have been informed of the abuse. But he says he learned when charges were filed last year.
I'm not sure we can prove anything about 2000, but 2005, yes.
Okay, let's go there.
So 2005, Cindy Clemishire contacts Robert Morris and calls him a child molester. And just so people understand, when you're abused as a child, the average age that someone abused as a child comes forward with, especially with clergy sex abuse, the average age that child comes forward is 52. Because you have to understand, it always comes along with spiritual abuse. It comes along with, one, it's your fault often. You tempted me. A 12-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, and we see in things that Robert Morris said.
From the pit of hell.
Yeah, absolutely. And he said that. His wife called her. Deborah Morris called her and said she forgives her. I'm like, forgives her for being molested by your husband?
Professional spiritual abusers.
Yeah, 100%. So when she finally gets to the point, I mean, this messed her up royally and messed up her relationships. I mean, she came from such a beautiful family. And to see the way that she struggled as an adult, it's because of the abuse. I mean, what this man did to her. But she finally begins to see it clearly, reaches out to him and speaks with him and his lawyer at the time and says, you molested me and you need to make it right. And the amazing thing is all she was asking for is some help with paying for counseling and some of that. And she spent tens of thousands on counseling. But again, she was sexually abused. I mean, this should be a millions dollar settlement if there's a settlement. And so at that point, Robert Morris said in the documents that he informed the whole board, all of the elders knew because they were giving him counsel as to what to do. 2 years later, in 2007, is when Cindy Clemenshire came back, and this time Gentner Drummond, who is now the Attorney General in Oklahoma, that was her attorney.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, she knew some powerful people.
Yeah.
And so he writes up, if you look at the document that he sent to her lawyer, there's basically a demand letter that you need to make this right, and it needs to be commensurate with the harm that's been inflicted. Says we'd like to do it privately, but if you don't, and there was a lawsuit in there, he had written up the lawsuit. So at this point, to think that Robert Morris wouldn't tell his elders, that he wouldn't consult. I mean, he says 100% he did consult, and also his attorney advised them as to what they should do. I mean, they had a plan in place for what was going to happen if this became public, which it should have.
In the court affidavits, doesn't it say that they had prepared a statement for the media?
So that was in 2011.
Oh, okay.
Now, by this time, Brady Boyd is not not a gateway elder, but here's the thing. We have the email. So what happened in 2011 is somebody reached out through an anonymous email, sent it to all the gateway elders, specifically Tom Lane, who's a very influential elder there at Gateway, Robert Morris, and Brady Boyd.
I saw the B. Boyd in that email.
And Lance Coles.
Yeah.
So and when I talked to Brady Boyd about this through email, we didn't talk over the phone, but we corresponded. And I was actually very glad that he corresponded about things. A lot of time people just go silent. So I did appreciate that. But he said it was sent to he has sort of an email that he gives out to everybody. And then he has 2 admins who sort through that and then send things to him that are important. I would think an email with the subject line, Robert Morris, I forget exactly what it was, but it's basically molested a 12-year-old.
Yeah, it's right there.
And that's one of their overseers. You would think that would somehow get to him. And he said, I have no explanation for why it didn't get to me. He also, just by the way, in 2007 was sent an email as well. That was to his personal email. He admitted that was to his personal email. And I'm like, you didn't. And this was from a Gateway elder talking about the meeting that the Gateway elders had in 2007 after finding out that Karen Black had informed the committee at New Life about the abuse, and telling about the meeting that they had and what they were going to do. He said he didn't get that one either. And I'm like, how did you not get that one? And he said, it was a crazy time.
A crazy time.
Crazy.
These were the BlackBerry days, bro. I mean, you had a laptop, I imagine. This was not the days of Pony Express. 2007, we had the internet in Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
It's really hard. It doesn't, shout out to Everett for Freedom. He's been following the story on YouTube very closely. He says it doesn't pass the sniff test.
It strains credulity. And here's another thing, is that Lance Coles told Karen Black in 2007, he said that he was going to arrange a meeting with Brady Boyd.
Right.
And then he emailed her back and said, oh, I'm sorry, he doesn't want to meet with you.
Yeah.
Now, why? Why don't you want to meet? And if he wasn't informed by New Life's committee about what had happened,
Why would you not want to?
why would you? Yeah.
Why would you not want to meet with with Black?
Karen
Black.
Black.
Why do I want to keep calling her Chris?
Well,
So-
it's okay.
Can we go back for a second, because I've heard and I've seen plenty of times where there was an opportunity that Cindy had given Robert Morris to basically keep this quiet, keep this underground, settle it. All she wanted was some closure.
Yes.
And none of this would have happened had Robert Morris just have basically apologized, compensated her for the healing that she needed, given her the closure. Robert Morris would not be in an orange jumpsuit right now. We would not be talking about this. Brady Boyd would not be at the center of the story in Colorado Springs. The New Life elders would not be essentially held responsible for this. Nobody would have known. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct. Which
And,
makes
and we have to believe this is not a Brett Kavanaugh incident where this lady comes out of nowhere, never has said anything. There's no email communications for 45 years. Then all of a sudden he gets tapped for Supreme Court justice and she comes out of the woodworks. This is not one of those cases. There's documented times throughout the last 40 years where this victim has attempted to reach out to Robert Morris, for Robert Morris to right the wrongs, has reached out to elders, has reached out to church officials. This is not like she's been silent for 40 years. It's not a Brett Kavanaugh case.
No.
And I do believe that Cindy was really looking for closure, and Robert Morris had the opportunity to do that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and you talk to her. Part of the reason the story has done so, I mean, it has been so believable, is because she's such a credible witness. I mean, she is articulate, she is bright, she is not, and this makes me so angry when victims come forward and they're called, disgruntled or vindictive or bitter or angry. And my response is always, well, of course they're angry.
Of course.
Why aren't you angry?
Yeah.
You should be angry. This is wrong.
Child is violated.
This is injustice. This is evil. But yeah, she was just looking for some help and some admission, and she got none of it. And the way that Robert Morris responded and the people around him responded is just unconscionable.
Well, and Robert Morris at the time of these assaults and this inappropriate relationship is what he wants to call it, was 20 years old, right?
Correct.
Like right at 20.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been anybody else that stepped forward? Has there been any other allegations since the time he was 20 till now of other inappropriate relationships? Or was this really a one-off incident?
We haven't had any more, which is, I will say, that is very, very rare. In fact, I can't think of another case. You had mentioned the Ravi Zacharias investigation. And with Ravi, we learned about one of his first victims, Lori Ann Thompson. But then we found a whole bunch of other women who were, masseuses at his spa, which, anyway, I
This guy had a spa, yeah.
and that didn't raise a red flag for anybody. Oh yeah, this evangelist has a massage spa. I mean, like, oh well. But yeah, these are the sorts of things where it's very, very unusual for a pedophile to be a one-time pedophile. Yeah. And so the fact that he did it once and then, unless somebody could come forward tomorrow, but you have to understand, even if he did, I have spoken with so many victims. The shame. And this is why, the Kavanaugh thing just makes me so angry, because it was so high profile. And so many people think, oh, this is a reason we can write off victims. I can tell you, I've been doing this for years and years. And I've talked to, I don't know how many victims I've talked to over time, but sex abuse victims, there's nothing for them to gain. Like it's humiliating to admit what happened to them. Most of them are beyond the statute of limitations, which is ridiculous that there is a statute of limitations.
Totally.
I know in Illinois, actually, I'm from the Chicago area, they just changed the law so that if you were molested as a kid, there is no statute of limitations. There shouldn't be a statute of limitations for child molestation.
Well, and a handful, I think it was Ohio, was the last one to try to pass, where clergy in the Catholic Church no longer had like confidentiality when it came to child sex abuse, that if they were told something in confession that they could not keep it secret, which the Catholic Church was very upset about. And there's some other states that have put that or have attempted to put that through legislation as well, that clergy does not have the opportunity to hold confidential a child sex abuse case, which there's plenty of people that are really pissed off. And I look at them like, why? Like, why don't you want to rid this from your churches, from your organizations? It just doesn't make sense. And I think that there definitely is an issue, because we have these high profile athletes and these high profile pastors where there very much is something to gain for somebody to concoct a story. This does not seem like one of those, but I think that there is plenty of cases where they are concocting stories for political reasons, for financial gain. I don't think that that's not happening.
Go ahead.
Well, they've done studies. Women who come forward about sex abuse, and men as well, it's not just women, it's like 91 to 95% are found to be telling the truth. It's very, very rare. But again, you get these high profile cases where there is a lot of ulterior motive involved. And then that's when, that becomes a big case. And then people assume, oh, well, that's more common than it is. It's really, really uncommon. And most of the time, they're not asking for money. Sometimes counseling, be compensated for counseling and things like that. But it's just unbelievably rare. And, you mentioned that whole exception for confession and Catholic priests. Do you know where or who has tried to use that to get off the hook for not reporting sex abuse?
Who?
John MacArthur's church, Grace Community Church in California, back in, this is a long time ago, 2005, I think it was, although that's when David Gray, who had been an employee there, had abused his kids, and he's now serving time for sexually molesting his kids. But it first came to the church, I think in 2001, his wife came to the church and told them that at that point, she didn't know about the sex abuse, but she knew that he had tried to suffocate one of her children. And there was other physical abuse, emotional abuse going on. And she got a protective order, and the church tried to compel her to drop that protective order. And it's unbelievable. It's like intimidating witness. And when she wouldn't drop the order, they sent her, and I've published all of this. If you can go on our website and see it if you haven't. But then in counseling, this guy, Kerry Hardy, who now he's senior pastor of a church, I think, in the Carolinas, he told her in counseling that she should be an example of Jesus and suffer the abuse as Jesus suffered abuse. Wow. Be a model to her children on how to be abused.
Wow.
Unbelievably sick. And there were tapes of this that were heard by another pastor and had an affidavit that he testified for the court that this had happened. Anyway, the whole thing, when it finally comes all out in 2005 that he had actually molested the children and everything else, it was beyond the statute of limitations. But they did come after the church and said, and tried to charge, well, they did charge Kerry Hardy with intimidation of a witness and failure to report. But the laws are so weak. It was like a year statute of limitations. So he got off, and Al Mohler, who is big-time Southern Baptist and also an editor at World Magazine, he argued for the court on Grace Community Church's behalf, arguing this exact thing, taking this exception for Catholic priests and saying because Eileen Gray said this in counseling, which it wasn't just counseling, she had come to the church elders outside of counseling and told them about this abuse, but tried to say that because it was in counseling, they didn't have to report it. So this is how those kind of laws can get used and abused.
Well, and here's the problem with the way that culture is heading, as California is heading to a point where they're accepting child-attracted persons as a legal argument, right? I believe there's still states right now in the United States where it would be legal for a 20-year-old to have a relationship with a 12-year-old.
Are there?
I think there is. I know that there's states where it's legal for 18-year-olds to have a relationship with a 14-year-old. I think in Colorado it's legal for an 18-year-old to have a relationship with a 14-year-old. And I think some of the states have stipulations like the parents must be aware of it, et cetera, et cetera. But there's still states out there with some crazy laws when it comes to like years separation. Some states have like a 6 or an 8 year gap. So essentially a 14-year-old could date a 20-year-old, a 16-year-old could date a 22-year-old. Those are laws that are actually on the book.
Well, and there's some sins that are disqualifying. I mean, mistake is a euphemism. What he did repeatedly, more than 100 times.
Full calculated evil.
It's absolutely child abuse. It's absolutely sexual abuse, and it's absolutely rape.
Yes.
Digital rape. Yep. I mean, that's what we're talking about. And to do it to a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, I think back on when I was 12. I don't even think I knew about the birds and the bees at 12. I lived in a Christian home. I was pretty protected. I mean, to a 12-year-old, the confusion and the damage that does, that is a disqualifying sin. I'm sorry. If you're a pedophile, if you've done that once, you're done.
And in Scripture, we are supposed to hold elders and overseers and pastors to a higher standard.
100%.
So that's more so. But there's something that I wanted to ask you. You know, Brady, when he addressed the New Life congregation on Sunday. He called it a moral failure, not a criminal act. He called it a relationship with a young lady. And there's all this language in the media about relationship with a young lady. And, the Bible talks about, the things that are stored up in the heart, is what you speak of. It almost seems to me like there's this unwillingness to admit the gravity of these crimes. Was that your impression in hearing Brady speak? And to his credit, he did call Robert Morris a pedophile at one point.
Yeah.
So to credit to Brady, but he also at another point, and I think this might have been, and correct me if I'm wrong, the 2024 address to New Life. It just seems like there's this dismissal of the gravity. Do you agree?
I didn't see him dismissing the gravity on the most recent, what he said to his congregation. But I'll tell you what I did really notice. And to his credit, he did say he was sexually molested her from the time she was 12 to 16. And I appreciate that he named that. But the way he did it, all right, he comes out. And so I've been doing this for quite a while, and I can almost, there's a playbook.
You already know what they're going to say.
Well, you do. I mean, Wade Mullen wrote this book called Something's Not Right. Yeah. And it was based on, he had studied 50 evangelical churches in crisis and what they did in crisis. And what he learned was they do all use this same playbook. And so him coming out, it's classic playbook stuff. So he comes out, the first thing he does is he engenders sympathy for himself. He's like, man, I've had a trying week.
Yeah.
Then he begins to talk about how his wife had passed out in front of him and took her to an emergency room. They were there till midnight. Turns out she had extreme nausea, and I guess that can cause people to pass out. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
So I got up to the room, and she was super nauseous, and she's like, I think I need to go to the ER just to get this checked. I don't know what's wrong with me. And then all of a sudden, she passed out in front of me. Like, that's never happened. Again, 35 years of marriage, she passes out in front of me in our bedroom. So I had, for the first time in my married life, had to call 911. The ambulance comes, takes her to Penrose, Maine on Nevada.
I got that in wrestling practice.
I mean, it's not like she was diagnosed with cancer, but it's still, I mean, yeah, no, I'm sure at the time it was scary, and I don't want to minimize that either, but he talks about that, and then he talks about another pastor at the church had a son who had an accident and had to have emergency surgery because he punctured his intestine or something, and
yeah.
But he was doing fine and doing okay. And then he says, and then there was this journalist who came out with ugly accusations.
And then on Friday, an article came out, this investigative journalist, and I want to share this with you today. An article came out on Friday and made some really ugly accusations about me that kind of went national.
Okay, just right there.
You addressed that.
Like, I'm this guy that had this incredibly hard week. It's such a hard week. And then this mean journalist comes out with these ugly accusations.
You're so mean, Julie.
You
had a hard week.
I know he had a hard week. I didn't know, or I wouldn't.
I think we're being pretty nice. I mean, you've been nothing but nice to us, so not so mean.
But and then later on, he references all three of these things again. He's like, so the thing at the hospital with my wife, then what happened with, one of these pastor's sons, and then this article that was inaccurate. And I asked him, I said, I did an email. I'm like, what was inaccurate? Can you tell me the specific thing that I was inaccurate? And he didn't name anything. He's just basically saying I'm a really nice guy and a good guy and you got it all wrong. And I'm like, I didn't get anything wrong. I don't tell people what to think. What I tell you to do is evaluate the evidence. I mean, if you look at my piece, I simply put the information out here. Here are the facts. The facts are damning, Brady. The facts are very hard to reconcile. That you didn't get an email because it was a crazy time in 2007. That you didn't know when we know that you turned down a meeting with Karen Black. Why did Karen want to meet with you? What was the premise that Lance came to you and said she even wanted to meet with you? What was it?
And why didn't you want to meet with her?
Well, that screams plausible deniability to me. It's like, don't, plug your ears and not find out. And just recently, back in November, Gateway got rid of 4 elders. And the reason they got rid of them is they said all of these elders, two of them who had served right alongside Brady Boyd at the same time, they either knew without a doubt this had happened, or they knew enough to ask questions and didn't. Brady, that is your responsibility. That's your responsibility as a protector of the flock. When you know that there's an issue, you ask more questions. You meet with Karen Black. You get to the bottom of it, and then you do the right thing. My guess is at that point he was in so deep because he did know in 2007, and Robert knew that he knew, and he did know earlier that year, in 2005, and then earlier in 2007, and then again. He was in so deep. And this is what happens. And I can tell you, these guys, and it's sick. I feel like I'm dealing with the mafia, and I'm dealing with pastors who have stuff on each other and keep quiet about sexual abuse because they have stuff on each other to silence each other. I mean, this is not how Christianity is supposed to operate.
Well, and then Brady goes on and he preaches a message because now he needs rest. And here's a message on rest. I don't know if you watched past Brady's address in the congregation.
No, I didn't. And you know,
So
the one
Aaron didn't either. And I was like, do you know what he spoke about afterwards? He's like, no. I'm like, rest. He said he needs rest. And we're taking a break right now, but we'll be back here in 30 seconds. Don't go take a nap, even though Brady Boyd says you need to take a nap. We'll be right back.
Our soul. He cared about our rest. He cared deeply about the burdens that we're carrying. And this week has really been exhausting to me. For lots of reasons, seeing my wife, John, who's a dear friend, carrying the weight of this article, just stuff like that tends to corrode our souls. And we look up one day and we're exhausted and we're tired.
Welcome back to Spiritual Insurgency. I got my rest in the last 30 seconds. Hopefully you got your rest too, because Brady Boyd wants you to get some rest. Hey, we just announced all this stuff, the potential cover-up of a rape of a 12-year-old, but don't worry, go to sleep. That's what he told us. Go watch it. It's pretty easy. I'll put it on. Here's the clip right here.
Naps are compulsory. I want you to take a nap and feel no guilt about it. I want you to take a guilt-free nap on a regular basis this summer. Somebody say amen if you're okay with that.
All right, Aaron, kick us back off. What you got?
In 2011, there was another opportunity for Brady Boyd to come clean. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so we mentioned this before, and I think I got on a rabbit trail. I do that from time to time.
Oh, I did.
Thank you for bringing me back.
My brain is full of rabbit trails.
So anyway, in 2011, there's this email that goes to all the Gateway elders, also addressed to Brady Boyd, also addressed to Lance Coles, executive pastor at New Life. It has details of Cindy Clemenshire's abuse, names her parents, names what happened at New Life, says that Larry Stockstill knew about it, talks about the search committee. Whoever sent this was in the know. So Gateway at this point, again, Brady Boyd is saying he didn't get it. Lance Coles, we know, already knew. And then you've got the Gateway elders. Well, they took it seriously. They're like, this is going to go public. And one of the things that was submitted was not just in Robert Morris's court documents recently, was not just the 2011 email, but also in 2011, he wrote an announcement. So he was expecting this is going to go public. And the announcement is very specific. He talks about, although it's still euphemistic, some of it, like I found out, I was so surprised that I found out she was, because she looks so much older, so much more mature, but she was about 2 weeks shy of her 13th birthday. And I've seen pictures of her. She didn't look older. There's pictures of her in her pink bloomer
Talking about
pajamas.
a child freak.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Now, this is hard to talk about.
But that announcement was shared with all the elders at Gateway. And again, at this point, Brady Boyd was gone. But
It's really, really, really hard when you add up 07, when you add up 2011, when you add up
2005.
that Brady could stand by his comments that he made to his congregation on Sunday that I did not know. So Julie's presenting the facts. You have an opportunity to use discernment and decide for yourself who is telling the truth. I'm convinced that I'm not buying it. The podcasters aren't buying it. KOAA, if you haven't seen the local news report, please go to YouTube and look that up. The local news ain't buying it. I don't know. I'm not.
When was Robert Morris fired from Gateway?
Well, it was when it came out, which would have been July, about a year ago, 2024.
So 2011, the elders are made aware that this story might be broken publicly, and 13 years passes, and then they get rid of Robert Morris.
Oh, it's such a farce.
I mean,
It's
there's
such a
there's
farce.
gotta be like at least 100 people that at some point have covered this up.
Oh, and then, for example, Jimmy Evans, who founded XO Marriage, founded Tipping Point, endtimes.com, very well-known preacher, pastor, who was very involved in the whole, I don't know if you've been following the Daystar scandal, but he's very involved in that as well. Jimmy Evans was in the thick of all of this. But one of the things that came out, and again, I've known about this for months, but it hasn't been on the record. Cindy and Karen, when all of these court documents were filed, then they're like, Julie, it's out. You can put our stuff on the record. But I mean, I've known about it, but hadn't been able to report it. But in 2007, I'm not Karen Black, but Cindy Clemenshire went to her pastor in Oklahoma and told him all about it. This guy, Mark Crow, megachurch in Oklahoma City, told him, because he was quoting Robert Morris, which you can imagine would be a little triggering to you if you're sitting there and you were molested by this guy. He's quoting him. She goes up and tells him. Somehow, Robert Morris gets winds of it. And Robert Morris and Jimmy Evans go visit this pastor. And Jimmy Evans is still saying, but I didn't know. You know what his latest thing is? He's like, I thought she was 16.
Oh God, that's
That
cool.
makes it so much better.
Bro, you're digging your own grave.
They would make it legal in most states, though, at this point.
Well, it was legal at that point in Oklahoma.
It's absolutely insane. So
yeah, it was. Yeah.
So the number one reason why people quote that there's no way we could have faked the moon landing was too many people had to stay quiet. Well, here's your proof that way too many people
It's a moon landing, bro.
can stay quiet. I know it's a radical jump, but
Hashtag rabbit holes.
we have to ask the question, like, what was the incentive for so many people to keep quiet? What did Robert Morris have on all of these other people that they were afraid to speak out? What did Robert Morris have on Brady Boyd that Brady Boyd made him an overseer of a church after he probably knew about this incident? I mean, for all of these people to stay quiet for 40 plus years, knowing that there had to be at least 50 people that at some point knew about this incident that kept quiet. Why are people staying quiet? Is there an exchange of money? Is there an exchange of leadership? Is it I won't tell your secret if you don't tell mine? I mean, obviously there's a huge interconnected web of these mega church pastors. And I asked Aaron beforehand, maybe you have the answer to this. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I asked him the question, is there any mega church in America that's doing it right?
Jolie, do you think there are? In your reporting, have you?
Okay, first of all, let me answer your question.
Yes.
As to why,
Yes.
3 words: evangelical industrial complex.
That's almost better than Reagan's 7 words.
You know what? It's this evangelical industrial complex, which is this whole interconnected web of ministries and mega churches, publishers, conferences, all of these things. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. This is a huge, huge amount of money. And when you look at Gateway and you look at how much money Robert Morris had, I mean, millions and millions of dollars. We published a piece about all of his, multi-million-dollar homes that he had. Where do you think he got those homes, friends? I mean, this is a very, very lucrative business. And unfortunately, it's a lucrative business that is unregulated by the government. If I'm a secular nonprofit, I got to file 990 that has how much all of you can go because we file 990s. You can see exactly how much I make. And I can tell you it is a pittance compared to what these other guys are making.
We don't make a lot either, so go online, donate to us, and then donate to Julia.
But we're transparent about all of these things, but you don't have to be if you're a church. You don't have to be if you're, now we have all of these, RZIM, Robbie Zacharias International Ministries, Focus on the Family, so many different ministries, Billy Graham, Evangelistic Association. They're all classified as churches now by the IRS. Why? Because once you classify as a church, you don't have to file 990, and you don't have to say how much your top executives make. You don't have to say where your money came from or where it's going.
But I will give them the benefit of the doubt that also you are exempt, like in the state of Colorado, you would be exempt from the public accommodation laws, which are absolutely absurd and would require you to let a transgender into the women's bathroom. So there is some other benefits for being a 501c8, a church status, that definitely allows you to protect your children from the culture. But at the same time, it also gives you that ability to cover up exchanges of money, where money comes from. You have a wealth of and a network of dark money, very similar to the political world. But there is some benefits as well that protect children because the government's not protecting children either.
Yeah, and Julie didn't come to discuss this, but there's a podcast with an attorney, Vanessa Johnson, who's interviewed by Everett for Freedom. Go look it up. She's alleging that this fallout could potentially pose RICO charges and discovery. I'd love to get Vanessa Johnson on. But I brought that up because we're on the topic of the evangelical industrial complex. So I just want to tease the viewers and the listeners that this very well could be the tipping point that God is cleaning house. He's coming back for a spotless, stainless church, and he's not very happy with people turning his house into a den of thieves. Last time I checked scripture, he was whipping people and throwing over tables, and I would see this as a modern day parallel to this. But my question to you, Julie, is where does Brady Boyd go from here? Where do you foresee the fallout? What is that going to look like in your opinion?
You know, it's up to your listeners. That's who it's up to.
Yeah.
Because,
That's good.
and this is what has been grievous to me, but also at the same time has been encouraging. Sometimes I report on these stories and there's action, there's public pressure. And I will say, with every story I've reported, I mean, I have tried. People are like, why don't you do the Matthew 18? Which, first of all, is a misapplication of Matthew 18. That's a personal offense. They're not talking about sex abusers in the pulpit. But in actually 1 Timothy 5:20, I'll just throw that out there. That is the passage if you want to go to it. It says, elders who are sinning should be publicly exposed so that others may stand in fear.
Come on.
So this is biblical stuff.
It is.
But we have been taught as a church that it's gossiping, that it's wrong. No, don't touch the Lord's anointed, like they're an Old Testament prophet or something. I mean, it's just sick.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I have to laugh because it's so dark.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
It really is. What was your original question?
Oh, my original question is where you answered it.
Yeah.
My question was, where do we go from here?
Oh.
And you said it belongs to the New Life congregation. I'm a former New Life member, so I'm calling on my brothers and sisters who I love because I've been at New Life for 9 years, and I know many people there, and they're God-fearing, Jesus-loving, gentle-spirited, humble people. So I want to make this very clear. This is not an attack on the body of Christ or this vindictive spirit to take down New Life Church. What this is what you mentioned, a 1 Timothy opportunity. So I just want to call on New Life. If there's anybody that has information, if you're on staff, contact me, contact Julie. If there's anybody that has ever been abused, now's your opportunity to come forward. Now's the opportunity to come for healing. And so I just want to encourage people, as difficult as it may be, God is on your side. I believe God is moving right now.
And let me add to that, because what often happens in situations like this is there's a third-party investigation. And I would be surprised if there's not enough public pressure to make that happen at this point. There should be a third-party investigation.
Absolutely.
Although it always frustrates me. The third parties come in and they basically look at all the stuff that we've already looked at and already reported, but you pay them the hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. What the journalists do for like pittance.
Yeah.
But they'll come in and do this. I just want to inform New Life members, if that happens, often what's done is when they hire the third party, they get a law firm to do it. Understand, a law firm has a fiduciary responsibility to their client, which means that they have to serve the best interests of their client, and their client will be New Life. It is not an independent investigation unless, one, the investigators have complete control over the investigation and the scope of the investigation, and the scope of the investigation is made public. They often try to narrow it because they know where the red flags are, and they want to keep those out. But there needs to be a third-party investigation on who knew what they knew and what they did with that information. And then the other thing is there needs to be a commitment from the church the full report, not the redacted report. I mean, redacted to take out victims, sure. But the full report will be made public so that what often happens is that the church will get the full report. They'll give you the version they want to give you from the report, and then we go along our merry way, and it actually becomes a way of whitewashing everything. So people, be discerning, and there's a great article out there from Boz Tavigian, who is Billy Graham's grandson, on this specific thing about independent investigations and what they should look like.
So I've got a couple questions as we close. First off, remember, you vote with your dollar. We always vote with our dollar. And so if you believe that your church is covering up incidents of sexual mispractice and misdeeds, then stop giving. Stop tithing. If you want to make a change in the local church, stop tithing and look at them and be like, I will not give you another dollar until you solve this problem, until you report with accuracy what's taken place, until you give me a firm investigation. But Julie, I'm going to go back to this the previous question I had. You've spent years reporting on all of the bad in the church. It's got to be pretty depressing. How many churches are doing it right?
I can't say. I'm sure there are plenty of wonderful churches doing it right with godly people leading, but I will say this is a systemic problem. We have to do things different. Lance Ford, who used to be on our board, but now he actually has come on staff, and we don't put staff members on our board because that would be a conflict of interest. But he did a message at one of our Restore conferences. And our Restore conferences are for people who have been hurt in the church to come and receive healing. They're so, so powerful. Our next one we're going to be announcing really, really soon, which will be in Dallas, where there's been just implosion of so many churches. But his message, Lance Ford's message, was, it's the system, stupid. Remember Bill Clinton's,
economy stupid.
It's economy. It's a system, stupid. We have to look at the system. We have churches that, quite frankly, most megachurches are like youth group services for adults.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
We don't want to dig into the scriptures. We get charismatic leaders who give us, kind of inspirational self-help messages.
TED Talks.
Because everybody wants a nap.
Yep. And the leadership culture. The leadership culture is toxic. We have imported a leadership culture from corporate America that is the antithesis of what Jesus called us to do, which is that we don't lord it over one another.
Yes.
We should be servants. The one who wants to be great should be the greatest servant of all. In your church, is your pastor the greatest servant of all? There was some guy, Josh Howerton, at a church in Texas, and he said, big mega church, and he said, I may not be, I'm not really a shepherd, I'm not really a pastor, but if you look at the org chart, I'm the CEO.
Whoa.
That's what we have right now.
At least he's being honest.
Yeah, at least he's being honest, right? But people have to understand these mega churches, the way that they operate is a worldly, sinful, corporate way of running. It's not the gospel way of running. And every little church wants to be a big church because bigger is better, especially in the U.S., right? And so they're all looking, how do we become like them? And this is where it kills me. Like these pastors, finally some are coming to the Restore conference because we do a pre-conference equipping them, to deal with these kind of issues. But for the longest time, nobody wanted to come. But you know what? And I'm right. If I did a conference showing you how to exponentially grow your church overnight, and yeah, absolutely,
Supersize my church.
I would be turning them away from the doors. But to come and to serve the least, the ones who have been wounded, who have been harmed in the church, the ones that Jesus went to, our pastors aren't concerned about that, and that should give us pause.
It should.
So we've got couple minutes left.
Newsboys?
Newsboys. Can you talk to us about the Newsboys story really quickly?
Well, we're pre-recording this, so by the time this comes out, we will have another story, and it is devastating. And we talk about the open secret of Robert Morris. Somebody reached out to me, and they're in CCM, I think a radio personality, and he was so mad at us because he's like, you implied that the open secret was that Michael Tate, abused other people. The open secret was that he was gay, not that he was abusing people. Well,
it's kind of one and the same, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Well,
I know that's controversial.
I don't know that I would say most of the time. I know.
I'm a little extreme. I said that, not Julie.
Yeah, but here's what I would say. I know some gay people that are decent human beings.
Me too.
I disagree with their lifestyle, and I don't believe it's biblical, but they are really decent human beings in most other ways. But I will say this, that what's happened is that we just really don't care about orthopraxy anymore, and that is right behavior. We care a lot about
Repeat that.
orthopraxy
Orthopraxy, thank you.
or orthopathy, which is right feeling. We have people saying that it's a sin. Empathy is a sin, which, my goodness, we care so much. We argue about orthodoxy like that's everything, and orthodoxy is important. But yeah, what's happening in the church is just awful. I think Jesus would be overturning the tables, and I think it needs to change.
Absolutely.
All right, Julie, where do we find more information your website? And go ahead and give us, how do we contact you?
We just go to Julie Royce, spelled R-O-Y-S, not Royce, not C-E, R-O-Y-S .com, julieroyce.com. All of it's there. Also, our YouTube channel, which we're launching a podcast today that walks you through all of the evidence with Brady Boyd and with Jimmy Evans. So I'd encourage you to go to Roy's Report YouTube channel, and you can get all of this information and more. There's a lot there.
I just want to thank you for everything you do. It's very appreciated. The body of Christ, you're edifying it. You're doing God's work. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I can't imagine it is easy. I can only imagine you've been attacked on all sides.
Oh, I was called a daughter of Satan just this morning.
Congratulations, you're part of the club. I was the Antichrist once.
Oh, yeah, I've gotten that too. Got a lot of choice words. I'm thinking,
As
hashtag
Christians.
gossip slut was what
Yes.
James McDonald called
And
it.
I was also unbiblical.
Of course.
Well, join us unbiblically, people, for our biblical show, Spiritual Insurgency, every day. Subscribe, like, comment below. What do you think? Spiritual Insurgency. Join us every Saturday on the radio and every day on YouTube and Rumble. Have a great day. God bless.
Peace.